Hi tea sippers, welcome to an all new episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. Let's get right into it because there's a lot to get to. Hi tea sippers, I hope you have your coffee, your tea, your champagne, or whatever have you. This is Dr. Long coming to you again from another episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. I'm your host Mark Long and I give it to you fresh every single time. This time we're hopping right into what's happening overseas. Trump started a war. Yeah. Simple as that. Trump started a war with Iran and their leader has been taken out. And here's the latest on what's been happening. Take a listen.
As I grope for words to make sense of President Trump's war with Iran, I keep coming back to one word. A word that's small compared to the big emotions it can unleash. That word is disrespect. The president disrespected Congress and the American people by announcing a war via social media in the dead of night, wearing a baseball cap at his exclusive members-only club in Palm Beach. A war of choice with shifting rationales that remain unsatisfying. And I cannot express how appalling it was to hear Trump on Monday spend more time waxing excited about his still under construction ballroom than he did mourning the loss of 4 service members in his war of choice. More alarming is how Trump completely sidelined Congress, which the Constitution gives the power to declare war. Gone are the days of the president actively seeking congressional approval. I remember the very serious speeches that dragged into the night in the House and then in the Senate that gave President George H.W. Bush the power to wage Operation Desert Storm. 35 years later, we have a Congress unwilling to check a president who has already taken us to war. And you know who's not happy about this? Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado, a member of the House Armed Services Committee who is a former Army Ranger and Bronze Star recipient. He told me, and I quote, "As a 3-time combat veteran, I get pretty damn hot when a 5-time draft dodger like Donald Trump bangs the war drums from Mar-a-Lago. It's not his kids or his billionaire donors' kids who have to pick up a rifle, jump in a tank, and do the fighting. It's working class kids from small towns like me that have to do the tough stuff. Trump doesn't understand that, and he never will."
That was a clip from MSN Now, pretty much talking about everything that's happening with the U.S.-Iran war and what's happening with Israel and how awful of a decision that was for the president to, at an impulse, make a decision like that without consulting Congress. But at the end of the day, when you hand your power over to the president, why should we expect anything less, right? Let's just give a background about what's happening here. So the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran, because that's what it is, has spiraled because of the president. He chose this escalation tactic for only one reason, in my opinion, which is a distraction from Epstein files. So basically from the start, he made it clear that he is interested in, interested in diplomacy or de-escalation. He is demanding that Iran's unconditional surrender happen, which is this basic maximalist fantasy that he whipped out of his ass, guaranteeing that this conflict will likely drag on. Most importantly, he even floated this idea that he should be the one who chooses the next leader, which is a statement that shows just how reckless and destabilizing he is and how he's been as a president and as just a general human being. On the ground, the consequences are immediate and severe. So we know that the U.S. and Israel have launched sweeping strikes across Iran, while Israel has expanded operations into Lebanon. Iran has retaliated, so that's something that obviously was going to happen, right? With missiles and drones across the region, overwhelming U.S. partners who are already running out of defensive systems. So rather than calming any kind of tensions there, Trump has already doubled down. He's doubled down with threats. Can you believe it? I can, of course. He issued an ultimatum to Iran's forces, basically saying to accept immunity or face any kind of guaranteed death. And it's just a soundbite that the president obviously likes to do because he thinks this is a reality show. But this is designed, from my opinion, about his tactic to send a shock value through everyone around the world. But most importantly, to push the region into deeper chaos based off what the president is trying to insinuate. So meanwhile, U.S. intelligence officials say that Russia is feeding Iran information on American positions, which raises stakes even further here in the United States. This conflict is spreading beyond its usual hotspots, so we know that the Iranian drones have hit other places, and the U.S. consulate in Dubai was also struck, which is a huge concern because American service members have been killed. So this raises debate in the United States where we are looking at, if this is happening, what is the point of this? Are we fighting this war because we need resources? Are we fighting this war on behalf of Israel? What's happening? Americans are dying. But most importantly, Trump has ordered federal insurance for shipping in the Gulf and deployed naval escorts to protect tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. And this is important because he is trying to distance himself from claims that Israel dragged the United States into war, even though his own rhetoric and decisions have been basically an example of that, you know? Across major outlets, including ABC News and CNN, there has been some highlights of Trump's military escalation and shockwaves about the recent death of Kamal, right? The leader in Iran who was taken out. But most importantly, CNN The Line reporting underscores Trump's refusal to negotiate with Russia's intelligence support with Iran. And also, there's been some emphasis of regional destabilization, with Iran expanding its retaliation. Midas Touch Line commentary basically have framed a lot of what's happening overseas as Trump's approach being very reckless, being very inflammatory, and being dangerous for both the region there and the United States. And if we look at this as a whole, this is a conflict not driven by strategy, but it's driven by Trump's ego and his ability to try to boast and show how powerful he is, while also his appetite for dominance is outweighing what the country here in America actually wants. None of this is speaking like America first. And Trump's refusal to even consider any path that doesn't involve total submission from the other side is absolutely disgusting. It's just gross. The region is destabilizing, American lives are at risk, and there's no coherent plan about how to end things, what the entire purpose of this is, other than strategies of what people are trying to insinuate, which is like weakening China's supply and their hold on oil. But even that makes no sense in this time. Why do we need to be involved in any kind of war? Americans should not be murdered. Americans should not be killed. That's where I stand. Moving right along, The View decided to have Alyssa Hasbeck on The View this week, and she decided she wanted to pick a dispute with Megyn Kelly over what's happening with the Iranian war. Go ahead and take a listen to this, because you know she likes to just rant on like she has a moment.
The strikes have been successful, taking out the terrorist regime in Iran, 40 leaders along with the Ayatollah. There's more to be known about where that military location was placed next to a school, and we're still learning about that. They are attacking civilians. We are attacking military locations.
175 people, most of them children, were killed in that strike.
If I could just say this. Number one, Megyn Kelly's clip that we ran before is saying who those troops died for.
I don't think those 4 service members died for the United States. I think they died for Iran or for Israel.
How dare you, Megyn Kelly? How dare you tell a military person who has sacrificed their lives for our nation in our uniform, when they are sacrificing their lives in our uniform, how dare you tell them or their families or our nation what they died for?
Oh, you better be careful. She'll come right back at you. She's like a roller derby.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of her. But I have my heart with my friends in the military. You do not get to authorize who they died for. So let me just clear that up. So I'm not, and I come here. I may vote Republican and I'm a conservative, but I'm a thinking woman. And I have a heart with this war or military attack. Are you glad that...
But then Elizabeth goes on to rant about how shouldn't we be glad that women are no longer dealing with this regime and that gay people are being thrown off a cliff? Yes, Elizabeth, sure. This is great for the United States to align with what's right in terms of morality. However, this is not a war that the United States should have picked. We're in bed with Netanyahu, and I feel like there's a lot of misinformation that's coming out, especially from the right, about what's happening here and regarding the foreign affairs of the circumstances. First of all, there's a lot of misinformation about what's happening in regards to previous administrations leading up to this point. I believe that Netanyahu and Trump have a good relationship, and there's something that they're both trying to cover up about each other. Because here's the thing, when you give two people like that so much power where they're in cahoots and they can make decisions like this and a whim, and it impacts this many people without any form of remorse. Trump later went on talking about the gold curtains in the White House and the construction and how the country is great and the economy and how we should be focused on doing other things and conquering other entities and taking more control over Cuba. There are huge implications here. And a lot of these privileged people who aren't going to put on a uniform to go overseas and fight war now all of a sudden have a huge opinion about what's happening. And it's very irritating to me, which is why I'm meeting this part of the segment with this tone. I want to begin by giving a little bit more information about what exactly is impacted, what exactly is going to be impacted by the start of this clear distraction from the Epstein files. Take a listen.
You've been imprisoned at the notorious Evin prison on death row. This was in the 1980s. And yet you warn against the toppling of this regime. Why?
Because I think that in the past 40 years or so, there were so many important events happening inside Iranian society. Iranian society, decade after decade, showed that they are capable of transforming their own society. Issues of social justice remain very prominent in Iranian society. Iranian women were very, very active in changing the conditions of their own life inside the country. And Iranian labor movement was very strong. Iranian students always were very strong. And I thought that at this moment, toppling the government without having a clear alternative only would damage those struggles that people have struggled to maintain throughout these past 40 years. I can't find any reason to celebrate the assassination of the Iranian supreme leader because I think it's part of a package. It's a package because the assassination of the Iranian supreme leader is also part of the killing of Iranian school children. It's also part of the killing of Iranian innocent people. It's also part of the attack on Iranian hospitals. And these are not separate issues, and I think that we should not be sort of fools to think that this is in any shape or form is done on behalf of Iranian people. This is done on behalf of American and primarily on behalf of Israeli interests. And I think Americans should ask themselves that why exactly are we attacking Iran without any kind of provocation? This is a war that is not in the interest of the United States and is only fulfills and realizes the desires of a regime in Israel that is promoting forever wars in the region.
Okay, so a lot to consider here. There is so much going on in regards to what the president has decided to do in terms of getting involved in this foreign issue, but let's start talking about why this war is just an absolute disaster of a mess, but most importantly, why it's a bad idea. Right? Like, why we shouldn't be at war with Iran right now. So, the deeper this conflict goes, the clearer it becomes that a war with Iran is not just reckless, it's strategically disastrous. And Donald Trump keeps pushing this idea that the United States needs to further escalate its efforts there with no real plan, with no diplomatic strategy, and no sense of long-term consequences at all. Trump has also demanded for Iran's unconditional surrender, right, like we talked about. But most importantly, we know that there's a lot happening here in regards to the economic fallout of it all. So, analysis estimate that the first 100 hours of current operations cost nearly $1 billion a day. A prolonged conflict will send oil prices soaring, We're talking a disruption in the global shipping, which will hit everyday people with higher costs. Most importantly, that's not even considering the fact that long-term military spending, veteran care, and interest on debt in everything that's happening regarding the war efforts is just going to end up with a major deficit and a major humanitarian cost, a major crisis in regards to affordability. But most importantly, we know that these limited strikes have already caused civilian casualties and full damage to Iranian cities. A full-scale war right now, from what I'm gathering and information I'm seeing, has deepened the regional instability in regards to resentment and extremists rising up to dislike us even more. So, despite all of this, the Senate has blocked all resolution right now that would have limited Trump's ability to even escalate this, which effectively just gives him this blank check to pretty much do as he pleases until there's an order in place and there's some action from Congress, which we know that's not happening because everything is being overridden right now. Trump is now ordering federal insurance for shipping in the Gulf and deploying naval escorts. And we talked about this earlier, right? But most importantly, his approach here is not even on the wavelength of any kind of endgame in sight. We know that this is going to be a war that's going to take place for months. We also know that there's so much to consider regarding how we can not only minimize what's happening, but benefit in the long run in terms of what's going to happen here in the United States in regards to production value, in regards to the economy. Some efforts and some reports are saying that this is going to help the economy, and some efforts are saying this is going to absolutely plummet the economy. Because right now, the economy is in the shitter. And I think it's very important that the listeners of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long know that the economy is down the drain. And this is a huge distraction, not only from the Epstein files, but from the fact that Trump is doing a horrible job as president of the United States.
Do know is most Americans, and it's being proved in polling that's coming out, most Americans are completely against this war because, like you said, the president has made no case for it. We live our ordinary lives and we don't feel threatened by Iran. We don't walk around thinking that in any moment an Iranian ballistic missile is going to land on our head. We don't. Here's what Americans, and I want to read off this list. This is what Americans are focused on. 72% of Americans can't afford health insurance. 58% of Americans can't afford car insurance. 67% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 31% of Americans can't afford their back taxes. 50% of Americans are in credit card debt, massive credit card debt. That's where we are in America. And I campaigned with the president. As a matter of fact, I was one of the only Republicans that was out there for Donald Trump when the rest of the neocons, by the way, that are just cheering him on now, had abandoned him and were trying to beat him in a primary and stop him from being president again. I was out there on the front lines for Make America Great Again. And Make America Great Again was supposed to be America first, not Israel first, not any foreign country first, not any foreign people first, but the American people first and our problems. And God bless the Iranian people. I hope to God that they can have a government that is for them and that treats women fairly. But what we have seen happen right now.
In what world are we that is Marjorie Taylor Greene, Miss MAGA Princess Warrior, Xenon, if you will, Xena, whatever her name is, chat. Let's just keep going on what's happening here. I just cannot believe that that's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is very pro-Trump, coming out to say how anti-American that this strike is on Iran, and not only that, pointing out the fact that there is no reason for the United States to be risking American lives. Let's go on and talk about this strike. So, Marjorie Taylor Greene is on Megyn Kelly right now, and she goes on to talk about the strike that actually harmed girls, which is actually the vulnerable population over in Iran right now that the regime there has currently treating like absolute garbage. And the strike at the school, which was basically the attack that hit the girls' elementary school in the city of Manab in Iran, southern, I think it was in their southern province. But anyway, it was the first day of school, and it was crazy because the children were in class, and Time reports that 100 children were killed, with at least 108 students confirmed dead by teacher union sources. Iranian officials have given higher figures than that, but Iran's education ministry says across all education sites since the U.S.-Israeli attacks began, at least 186 students and teachers have been killed, with 114 being injured, with about 20 education centers damaged or destroyed. Like, what is happening? So, right now, they're saying that Iranian authorities are basically saying that the school was hit in an airstrike, and they blame the U.S. and Israel, which is, they're basically calling it the single loss of civilian life that they've ever seen in a war strike. But most importantly, they're saying that Israel has publicly said that it has found no connection between its operations and the strike. And U.S. officials are including that the Defense Secretary and Secretary of State say that the Pentagon is investigating and have not accepted responsibility for this. So, human rights groups say that pattern attacks on children in schools, both from airstrikes from Iran and its own crackdowns, what have you, amounts to mass killing of school children, and they're saying that that is pretty much a war attempt. That's an egregious crime. You're killing innocent beings, but most importantly, those who are vulnerable. And if we look at this from a narrative of human rights groups are now just looking at this as not just collateral damage in war, but more so as some kind of weird attempt to one up a nation just to look as if you are more dominant than thee. This is not what we need right now in this country, and we're looking at this from the lens of also wanting to push an agenda from a president who is not looking to take responsibility for his own actions on our economy and what those innocent girls in the Epstein files had to face, and what is happening with the job losses of many Americans across the country, not to mention the fact that those who are already wealthy and have connections and properties and businesses are well off because they can benefit from the things that are put in place by the president. If this is America first, how come average Americans aren't seeing any of those benefits? Because the cost of living has gone up, because you are causing distractions by not taking responsibility, by not bringing down costs, by losing from the Supreme Court when it comes to tariffs. This is a fucking disaster. And the fact that the Democrats and the Republicans and everyone who is a politician right now has not done everything in their power to make sure that this dictator is not taken out of this power is beyond me. We have to do better as a nation. We have to come together. No wars. We have to stick together as one. And we have to make sure that we put a kibosh in all of this egregious distraction when it comes to someone who just wants their ego to be shown in a different light. I don't care that you won a Nobel Peace Prize. How does that impact my life as an American? Meanwhile, back in the United States, T-Sippers, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were questioned this week in regards to their involvement. And last week in regards to their involvement with the Epstein files. But most importantly, there was a lot happening that hit the fan in regards to just the deposition that Hillary Clinton had to sit through, and the exchange of questions she was getting, and her weird interaction with Nancy Mace, of course. Because, Nancy Mace likes to pretend like she's this, give women this and make sure we protect women. Meanwhile, she's here going after Hillary Clinton at a deposition of something that she is very passionate about, which is the Epstein files. Take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Secretary, thank you for returning this afternoon.
Secretary Clinton, is your husband someone the committee should investigate?
My husband will be here tomorrow. You'll have a chance to ask him questions.
So my question is your husband someone this committee should investigate?
Asked and answered.
Apparently you are. You've subpoenaed him. He's going to be here tomorrow.
In your testimony before the break, you discussed why you believe President Trump should testify before our committee due to a, quote, pattern of behavior, end quote. You testified that a pattern of behavior warrants accountability. So I want to make sure I understand your standard correctly. The pattern of behavior you describe includes being held civilly liable, indictments, sexually deviant behavior, correct?
Yes.
In 1998, your husband was found civilly liable for sexual misconduct with Paula Jones and settled for $850,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
By your standard of pattern of behavior, should your husband testify before this committee?
He is testifying tomorrow.
On December 19th, 1998, President Clinton was impeached on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice, which directly related to his extramarital affair with Monica Lewinsky. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your husband was impeached for perjury related to sexual behavior, correct?
I didn't understand what you said.
Your husband was impeached for perjury related to sexual behavior, his sexual behavior.
He was impeached for several reasons, and then was acquitted in the Senate.
And your husband flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane 17 to 26 times, correct?
He made several trips with different legs on the trip, as I recall. But Howard Lutnick missed being a victim because he was delayed dropping his child off to kindergarten. You asked the question. I'm going to answer your question.
Now you're going to
This was what I spent my time doing.
I'm a survivor trying to look out for other survivors trying to
and I was taking care of the people who lost 3,000 lives
and now you're being
at World
defiant
Trade
and
Center.
indignant today.
You asked me
I have
about
met
Howard
with Epstein
Lutnick.
survivors. I'm a survivor myself. You have emails. You've denied that Jeffrey Epstein, that you tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to give money to you.
I did not.
Howard Lutnick was
If you
used
have
to
an
get
email
money.
with me asking Jeffrey Epstein for money,
I have an email from Howard Lutnick sending it to Jeffrey Epstein and his people to raise money for you.
don't know about
for an event, an intimate event for you at his offices at Cantor Fitzgerald. You're going to sit here today and obfuscate and say to this committee, you didn't try to get money from Jeffrey Epstein when there was an intimate event in an email that Howard Lutnick emailed to Epstein's people and Epstein to get him to come to your intimate event at Cantor Fitzgerald, a very small event. And so I'm not going to public. You want to yell at me, that's fine, but I'll yell right back.
Well,
okay? I am looking out for
it's
survivors.
very-
I'm doing the job that you would not do and refuse to do as Secretary of State. Thank you, and I yield back to
No,
Congresswoman.
I'm going to finish answering the question, which I have a right to do. I am very sympathetic to your personal situation. I have read about it. I have seen you testify or speak on the floor about it. And I very much sympathize with not only what you went through, but appreciate your effort to stand up for survivors. I was a senator representing the people who were murdered on 9/11. Nobody lost more people than Howard Lutnick. You can say whatever you want. You can call him and have him appear before the committee. But I knew him as the man who lost the employees that he knew intimately, including his brother.
Okay, so let me talk about why I have a problem with this. And my main problem is the obvious one, which it should be to many people. Why is Hillary Clinton being questioned about the Epstein files at all? And I understand that Bill Clinton is in here and it disgraces a lot of people want to say that he is. They have a right to feel that way. If you have certain ideas and certain ways of how a president and a person of leadership should carry out their responsibilities, and Bill Clinton didn't do that for you, I can understand that. Why the fuck is Hillary Clinton taking questions about the Epstein files while the president of the United States gets to start a war? So let's just start there. And the audacity of Nancy Mace, as also a fellow survivor of abuse, I want to question her ability to pivot from all of these powerful people in charge and taking her frustration out on a woman who was married to someone who also, in my opinion, victimized someone who was vulnerable in a situation that, in my opinion, didn't have full consent based on the power dynamics. For her to then take that out on a Hillary Clinton is hypocritical, is not aligned with how you should carry out questioning in that position, survivor or not. As a survivor, I'm not trying to say that Nancy Mace should question or feel a certain type of way. I'm not saying that, but there is the right way to do your fucking job when it comes to making sure that you're getting your point across without making it seem like that Hillary Clinton is the smoky gun here when it comes to the Epstein files. So, let's just ask some questions, some general questions. Why is questioning Hillary Clinton a bad idea? So, the short answer here is not a bad idea. However, it is kind of not the best idea because the confusing questioning makes it seem like she's involved, when in reality they're relying more on conspiracy in regards to how she's linked to the files based on communication with Epstein's team. So, they're relying on memes and names and 8-guy fakes and all this other stuff that went viral and other things that don't really have anything to do with the former First Lady, which is kind of crazy, and the former Secretary of State. So, what CNN and other reporting people are actually saying is that on February 2026, Hillary Clinton testified for more than 6 hours, which is obviously a lot less than what she's had to do in the past, based on the line of questioning that she's had to face before. But she stated that she did not know Jeffrey Epstein. She told reporters afterwards that she repeatedly said this under oath during the deposition. She basically, and there's also no verified evidence of any personal connections. She verified that there were email exchanges between people that were trying to do something in regards to communication for something that they planned that she was invited to, not related to any criminal scheme. So there are no verified reports that show her visiting Epstein Island. Nothing that says that Hillary Clinton flew in a plane, participated in any of his crimes, let alone knew the man. And there's viral images leaked of Donald Trump, obviously several images of him and First Lady Melania Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. There's even one of Melania doing work, right? Whatever, go ahead and make your money, but don't act like you're Miss Conservative girl and doing this thing when you've been all here with your clothes off. So that's neither here nor there. So there are also viral images and leaks that supposedly prove a connection that have repeatedly turned out to be miscaptioned, edited, or AI generated of Bill and Hillary Clinton. So, there are documentations of Bill Clinton's flight logs on Epstein's plane, which makes me further question, why do women have to constantly face questioning and take the fall for powerful men, and why do other women do it to other women? There needs to be some kind of understanding that when it comes to powerful men, you have to have each other's understanding of what's at stake here when it comes to lives of people in this country. And I think Nancy Mace failed her opportunity, as she wants to make it seem that she is so pro finding out who is involved in the Epstein files. She is going directly and pretending like she's doing her job and questioning Hillary Clinton's conspiracy aligned efforts to the Epstein files and her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, when she should be focused on all of these powerful men that pivot women against each other, that have control of the narrative, that are even making her question her involvement with voting for Donald Trump and being aligned in the Trump administration. Get real. What I know is that thousands of girls were victims of rape and abuse and malicious sexual violence from very powerful men that are still in power and still get to dictate how other people live their lives when they have the deepest, darkest secrets that make them look like the most pitiful, small human beings on the planet. And we as a country need to begin aligning ourselves with what's right and stick together and vote these people out. But if we can't vote these people out, we have to start taking action. This is starting to get absurd. If you are MAGA right now, you are a pedophile defender, because we are now going above and beyond to question the former Secretary of State, the former First Lady, the former presidential candidate, whatever you want to call her, Hillary Clinton, about the Epstein files. We have Trump starting a war and everything that's out there with millions of redactions, and there's still no answers to anything that we want to know. There's still a lot of hard economic issues that Americans are facing right now, especially small town people that voted for Donald Trump, that are going to be hit by the biggest cuts, the biggest affordability crisis, and they have no clue. Let that all sink in. Thank you for listening to another episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. You know I bring it to you fresh every single week, and this week, we really got to it. Tune in next week for a special episode where we dive a lot more deep into what's happening here nationally and how you can get more involved in your basically sharing your opinion, but in the discourse of politics right now. Thank you. Take care.